Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis Cox with Radha Home Yoga, and I am bringing you your full moon forecast for Wednesday, October 24th. We have the full moon coming in at 9:45 a.m. Pacific time, and this full moon has a lot of exciting features. First of all, it is in the star of Ashwini, which is the first star of our zodiac. It's the first nakshatra. It's the place in the zodiac where we start new, where we've come through our endings. We've just passed through the final nakshatra of Revati and sort of let go or made peace with certain things, and now we're fired up to head in a certain direction. Sometimes with Ashwini you can see there's two directions because there's two horsemen. The story, the mythology behind this star is that the sun had a beautiful wife named Sanjna, who's consciousness, and she found her husband to be very hot since he's the sun, and his heat was so overwhelming to her that she asked her father to saw off some of his rays so that he could be a little less hot. And of course that didn't do the trick. It needed he needed to be even less hot for her, so she took a little break and decided to go on a trip, a journey away from her son, away from her husband, the sun. And she asked her sister Chaya, which is shadow, to go in her place and take over her part as his wife. She did not, however, want her to take over her sexual part as his wife. She was hoping she was just going to fill in the place. And when she came back, she found that her sister had indeed slept with her husband and had two children, both Yama, the god of death, and Saturn, the planet of our fears and time, consequence, hard work, and humility. So she ran away from her husband and Chaya, and she ran down to earth and transformed herself into a horse and just started galloping across the earth. When her husband, Surya, the sun, realized that he had made this mistake and that Chaya was not Sanjna, he also transformed himself into a horse and went down to earth and chased after her. And the two met up in a field and made up and made love and had twins born of that union. And those twins are the Ashwini twins. They're said to be the Ayurvedic doctors to the gods. And this is a place of healing physically and also of great knowledge of healing. It's a beautiful star to, like I said, start something new, to get something going. And since this is the full moon and sort of a culmination point in our moon cycle, it's not the new moon, so it's not a starting point in terms of the phase of the moon. What we see is that we've been in a Virgo cycle. So we've been in a cycle where we've been dealing with healing and purification and all of the sort of ways we can make ourselves clean again and neaten up our space, organize our lives, and find health and healing. So this point does work very well as a full moon, because even though it's sort of starting the next cycle of the sun, which is in Libra, it has that quality of healing work, of really setting forward with whatever you've cleansed, going forward with a new step of mindfulness about your body and about your physicality here on earth. We have a lot of strength and a lot of courage when the moon is in Aries, so our mind is on fire and ready to kind of go out and tackle all these different things that maybe we've been avoiding, especially the last few days with the moon in Pisces, where we get kind of that escapey, dreamy mode, and it's a little bit harder to imagine manifesting things. This full moon is also a time in India when they honor the goddess Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the goddess of grace and beauty. She shows us a way of being in this world that is both kind and generous, and also offers us deep wisdom about spiritual wealth. So often she's prayed to for wealth, literally material wealth, but one of the sort of secret blessings of Lakshmi, if you're a true devotee, is the wealth of spiritual knowledge that can come with that grace and with that generosity. When we sort of don't turn the other cheek, but when we don't tackle problems on in a head-on manner, when we take a different kind of approach, where we sort of just, well, one of my favorite myths with Lakshmi that shows this is when her other half, Vishnu, and her come down to earth in their form as Jagannatha. They take on this temple in what is now Benares, or what used to be Benares, what is now called Varanasi. And in Varanasi, they have all these pilgrims coming to their temple. It's a very popular temple. It's a very famous temple. It's a temple everyone wants to come to. And then at some point, Lakshmi notices the poor people around the temple and how there's all these villagers that have nothing. So she starts bringing them some of the pujas that are brought to them. She starts bringing them some of the food. She starts blessing them as well with all the wealth of their temple. And the poor villages start to flourish. Well, Vishnu notices this is happening, and he's like, no, you can't do that. You know, this is they're outcasts. They're you know, it's not part of the system. The system doesn't work that way. This isn't how we operate. We take our pujas, we take our blessings here at this temple from these people who are allowed to come in this temple. And, you know, in India, there's a caste system. And, you know, it trickles down to the outside. We don't go out there and we don't give them the food because it's unclean and all these different rules that the society has put in place. And Vishnu is sort of representative of these rules and of like social law and the ways that, you know, the right way to do things. And Lakshmi says, oh, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And instead of sort of having an argument with him or fighting or doing anything like that, she just leaves. She just literally leaves the temple and she goes to live with the poor. And every day she helps them with their garden. She helps them, you know, bring blessings and abundance into their lives, and they flourish. You know, it just starts to like make everything more beautiful. Wherever Lakshmi is, beauty grows, generosity grows, abundance grows, fertility grows. So everything starts to get more beautiful on the outskirts of town where all the poor people are living, and the temple, meanwhile, starts to diminish. It starts to become raggedy looking, and no one's really coming, and it's not very beautiful, and no one's bringing money, and it's kind of got this miserly, unfriendly vibe going on. And Vishnu starts to be like, well, what am I going to do now? You know, I messed up. So he has to humble himself. And I think there's some part of it where she's like, I won't come back. I've heard different variations on the myth, and you know, she says, I won't come back until you come to me with a begging bowl, you know, some symbol that he has become like the poor. And so he stands in line and holds the begging bowl and waits for, and that might actually be a variation where it's Shiva. So there's so many variations of the different myths that just came to me right now, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that might be a myth that is a different incarnation of the goddess and even of the Godhead. So anyway, he humbles himself before her and says, I was wrong, you know, can you please fill my bowl with food? And she fills it with food and, you know, accepts him back into her generous circle. But she's like, never again tell me that I can't help people, or tell me that I can't spread my beauty wherever I want to spend it, wherever I want to spread it, because that's her nature. So on this night, people light candles for Lakshmi, and some people stay up all night long and they wait for her to come by and visit. And supposedly she'll say, you know, are you awake? And if you are, then you are bestowed with her blessings. So great night to stay up. You can chant to Lakshmi, or just meditate on gratitude. You know, that's one of the most fulfilling ways to realize the abundance we already have, is to just be in gratitude for what we already have. And then, of course, if there's something you're really wanting to invite in, you can put that forward as well. This full moon is going to have the retrograde Venus directly giving drishti to it. So we have Venus in 10 degrees retrograde and the moon at 7 degrees in Aries. So we will have that extra sort of blessing of the planet Venus, which is associated with Lakshmi, where we are more refined, we are more gracious, we are more interested in harmony and beauty and getting along and friendliness and love and all of those things. So even though it's retrograde, it's kind of beneath the surface, which means it might not output in the world, it might not be forward moving, all those things for us right now, but it's beneath the surface and it's stalled, halted, it's delayed, but we're still feeling that energy because Venus is in our home sign of Libra, where we have a lot of capacity to have those things. There's that graciousness, that generosity of spirit that we sometimes don't have. Mercury is also going to be joining the sun there in Libra, but it is at the very end of Libra on his way out, so it won't really be giving too much drishti to the moon, but we'll see that there's that communication still available for us in a friendly, kind, and balanced manner where we want everyone to get along. So that's for a few more days. Venus is going to move out of her retrograde cycle on November 16th. So we have, a few more weeks here with this retrograde energy, and Mars is finally going to move out of Capricorn, which we've been, sort of waiting for all summer. Moving the pressure off of that area of our life where we really didn't want to deal with it, but obviously we're brought to our knees and had to this whole summer into the fall. So November 5th, we see Mars move into Aquarius, and if you got my last report, I when you signed up for my email list, there was the report Venus and Mars for the end of the year, and it showed where Mars has been and where's it going for your chart. So that's actually still up right now as a free offer. I'm working on my Jupiter for all 12 signs report, and that will replace it soon. So if you want to get that Mars Venus report, you can still. And so we have Jupiter in the first 2 degrees of Scorpio now, and this has been something we've been moving through for the last little over a week. Actually, it moved on November 12th. Jupiter is actually in very strong dignity in Scorpio. It gives us an opportunity to take all those teachings and all that wisdom that we acquire in the outside world and bring it into ourselves. So we're actually doing the work, you know what I mean? Instead of just projecting it or talking about it or learning about it, we actually have to go into those shadow places. While Jupiter was in Libra, we saw ourselves going outside of ourselves a lot, really trying to make wisdom and social fit, make our beliefs and the social world work together. That is something that has its place for sure in our world, but of course deep change that's really going to take root and hold is going to have to start with ourselves. It's going to have to start with us looking at our shadow side, which is where Scorpio shines. It's the part of us that's willing to go in those dark places, that has the courage to go in those dark places, that we don't want to look and really crawl into that space and like a bug and sit in that shadow and sit in that darkness and see what it really feels like and what it really looks like. Because when we're only seeing things from the outside and wanting everything to be nice and wanting everything to be fair, but not really seeing how we ourselves participate in it not being fair or in it not being the vision that we want it to be, then we do ourselves a disservice, and we of course do whatever we're fighting for, whatever our beliefs are, a disservice as well. So you can see with Saturn still in Sagittarius, this commitment to our beliefs and forward moving now, of course, and then Jupiter in Scorpio, we're really going to have that desire to find our wisdom in those shadow places. And in a month, the sun will join forces, and we'll really see ourselves willing to illuminate those places. Jupiter stays in a sign for a year, so we have a long time with this alignment, and we'll probably go through many different emanations of it. So this is the start of the end of the year, and it's very exciting for us because it's been a pretty rough year. Yeah. So I'm super excited to announce that I'm going to be launching my first online yoga video called Lunar Sadhana. In the next week, the doors will open for people to join this really fun program. We're going to start with a 40-day sadhana. This is said to be the amount of days that it takes to start a new habit. And it's designed for women who really want to tap back into their feminine essence and maybe don't have as much time as an hour-and-a-half yoga class or even the capacity to go to one. So I designed this with mothers in mind. Myself being a mother, my son is almost 2, I realized how challenging it is to just even get to a yoga class. And for someone who doesn't already have a practice that they do on their own, it can be even more challenging. This is designed as a nighttime practice because that's the time we mamas finally get our self-care in, if at all. And it's going to be super short. There's a 10-minute moon salutations, Chandra Namaskar, and then there's a 20-minute lunar practice. You can do them in 2 parts or all 30 minutes. You can do it any time of day. It doesn't have to be at night. And we're going to be supporting each other with an online group as well. There's going to be meditations, offerings that I offer where I do transmissions, speaking of the goddess archetype, telling the mythology, tapping into the moon energy, all the stuff that if you've ever taken my yoga classes, you know I like to bring into the classroom. And those will be separate videos filmed for about 4 or 5 times over the course of the 40 days. And there'll be bonus meditations for sleep. It's going to be a really cool practice. I'm excited for the launch. I've been working on this very hard all summer, and this is the time. So if you haven't yet signed up for my Lunar Sadhana waitlist and you want to, I'll have that link down below. If you want, you can comment, like, or share this video. And again, if you want that Venus-Mars report, we have a couple more weeks left before that comes down. Have a beautiful full moon. Stay up late and wait for Lakshmi's blessings if you can. And I look forward to seeing you again. Namaste.